After a start where everyone gathers in a circle trying to make engine noises,
Security to Deck 11. Something is very wrong down here.
we can get on with the standoff with the Germani scavengers that are trying to take old Federation junk that's been left floating in space, on account of them being scavengers. The Cerritos is there to collect the cargo that is still of value and is offering a finder's fee for it, but they won't let the Germani take the actual cargo. And just to be clear, this is not a recent accident we're talking about where some ship got damaged a couple days ago and the Germani have jumped on it before anybody could show up to collect some badly needed supplies for some humanitarian mission. No, this is a 100-year-old wreck. Not that I'm taking their side either, I just don't want this to come across like there's some kind of vultures. Even though, vultures are also scavengers. Maybe I should call them salvagers instead. Anyway, we need a plan.
If we fire on them, it's an act of war.
I advise we fire on them.
I'd love to see their views on Ukraine. Down in the mess hall, Mariner smacks Tana's face into her nachos, setting off a shitstorm about what a complete tool Mariner is as an officer. An extremely harsh, if totally fair and accurate assessment of Mariner. Fortunately, new guy Fletcher steps in and diffuses the situation. But there's still tension when the topic turns to the cargo out there. Tendi is all excited until she learns it's going to involve a spacewalk.
I have a horrible secret!
Are you Andorian and just been passing for Orion the whole time? Because there are some crimes that you can't come back from, Tendi. Actually, turns out that due to some mix-up, Tendi never had to complete her spacewalk training. And no pressure, but if nobody notices that you've screwed that up, well, it's a long trip towards a slow death with lots of time to think about your bad choices. As speaking of bad choices, Mariner and Boimler are disappointed that their duty involving putting isolinear chips into all of these cores is going to stop them from getting to go to the choo-choo dance. Whatever that entails. I suppose if half the people are engineers, a train-themed dance is inevitable. Fletcher volunteers to do their share of the work so they can go get their choo-choo on. Thankfully, we're not watching that. Rather, we're watching Rutherford's solution to Tendi's problem, a program that he has made on the holodeck, where an animated comm badge named Badgie will help her to train. But it's still in the beta stage and stalls partway through. Looks like he's going to have to reboot it.
Come on, you stupid glitch!
With an actual boot. Speaking of a kick to the head, after the choo-choo dance, Boimler and Mariner return to find Fletcher's in rough shape, lying on the floor mumbling to himself. Someone stunned him with a phaser. On the stun setting, not that he was shocked. Never mind. The core that is part of the shield system is missing. It's not a vital part of it. It should work fine without it, but if it's caught, Fletcher is going to get a choo-choo up the ass. They figure this must be Delta Shift's work, trying to get one of their own in trouble. But after some harsh words are exchanged and Fletcher's ready to throw down, someone points out that Delta Shift was right there with Mariner and Boimler at the choo-choo dance, so it couldn't have been them. They can't do the crime if they're in the wrong room. We've all played Clue, right? Well, there's a problem because the Germani are now resorting to tossing bits of wreckage at the Cerritos to try to drive them off. Which is a real issue on account of bashing against the shields is exposing that there's a problem with said shields. Oops. Also, the feedback from this tends to have a negative effect on the holodeck. You know how temperamental those things are. And whenever they're messed with even the slightest, they flip straight over to evil. See? That's a good example. Well, this is some good practice in spacewalking, but not many places to hide, so they switched to a Bajoran marketplace. That way Badgie has other people to slaughter. And on that topic...
Phasers locked onto their warp core, Captain. Please let me shoot their warp core. I have been very good this month.
We still need to deal with the salvagers. The damage makes the Mariner trio realize that Fletcher's about to be found out, and he says, "Oh yeah, the dude who shot me was totally an alien." This story falls apart when they find the cores in his bunk under a towel. Yeah, Fletcher's the one who took it. See, he figured the job would go a lot faster and easier if he were smarter, so he concluded he could use the computer to make his brain smarter, because he's not smart enough to realize that's just stupid. So instead of becoming smarter, he just broke it. Ever notice that everything around here, when it breaks, becomes hostile? Nothing ever breaks and starts giving out back rubs, does it? Fletcher is not helping. In fact, his attempts are making things worse. So he threatens Boimler and Mariner that he'll pin this on them if they call the bridge.
You break rules all the time!
Only dumb rules that shouldn't be there so I can do a better job. I would never put anyone in danger. Except sometimes maybe Boimler.
I'll touch on this point in a little bit, but first, we've got to get on with the real problem, Tendi and Rutherford, because Badgie is still continuing to pursue them. Apparently, though, it's vulnerable to physiological limitations, like getting tired or getting cold, and so the strategy is obvious. If holodecks are next-generation gaming, we can defeat it using environmental damage. I mean, yeah, it'll affect them too, but that's also old-world gaming, dealing with that. I mean, one of my favorite memories from gaming is when my roommate was grabbed by half a dozen mooks and announced, "Let's see who has the most stun points," before putting his tongue on his own electric trident. As for the possibly self-aware core, Fletcher is the opposite of help. In fact, he's aiding the core in his plan to take a beating from it so he can lie and say that it wasn't his doing, it was some Q showed up. Fortunately, together, Mariner and Boimler get the monstrosity out the airlock. Unfortunately, it goes after the Germani ship. But this flips when the Cerritos is helpless and the core takes out the Germani ship so that they're not all killed. As for the pair in the holodeck, Rutherford buys time for Tendi by turning back to fight his creation. And while this is an ugly fight, eventually he's able to snap its neck. Really, should have realized the neck was the weak spot earlier. Well, time to pay the piper on that rampaging computer core situation, but rather than throwing him under the bus, Mariner and Boimler decide to put Fletcher on the bus, saying that it was all part of his brilliant plan so that he'll get a promotion and a transfer to the Titan, where he screws up in less than a week. Karma's a bitch. So regarding what Mariner said, that's how she sees herself, that she only breaks the rules because of frustration and not being able to help people. Now, how accurate is that? We need to see more episodes to see if this self-image holds up. As for the episode itself, it works if you like dark humor, which I admit that I do, so between Kill Crazy at the weapons console and Badgie's psychotic threats, I enjoyed the episode for the most part. But I can easily see it rubbing people the wrong way. Some of it is borderline cringe, but that's just a matter of taste, and for me, it didn't actually cross the line into cringe. The episode establishing that Rutherford clearly has some puppy love for Tendi is also nicely handled. It doesn't make too big a deal of it, but rather simply acknowledges it. Likewise, Boimler and Mariner actually noting how much better it is when the two are working together instead of acting like assholes is a moment of self-awareness that I think the show needed. Because in our next look at Lower Decks, we're finally heading back to episode 1. God help us all.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
On the ground! Now! We're just having a... I said freeze!